Hi everybody, my name is Destinee Williams-McPherson, and I'm going to be sharing a testimony with you guys. 14 years ago, in 2009, I was staying with my mom temporarily with my two kids, who at the time were 6 and I believe 1.5. My oldest, my daughter, was about 6 years old, and my son was about 1.5. I was staying with my mother temporarily and my stepfather. They were living in a 2-bedroom apartment at the time. They both worked second or third shift. I can't really remember. But at the time they would get home around 11, 12 o'clock in the morning from work. And usually I would stay up late until my mom got home so we can chit chat and stuff like that. I was staying with my mom temporarily because at the time I was with my kid's father, who was playing professional basketball in Beijing, China. And on his off season, we would come home and I would usually stay with my mother, or we would obtain temporary housing in like a extended stay hotel or a Marriott Residence Inn or something like that until we were to fly back to China. So my kid's father went ahead of me. He returned back to China, so we were going to fly out a few weeks after he had left. So like I said, we were staying with my mom in her 2-bedroom apartment. She had given me her master bedroom because there was a king-size bed in that bedroom, so me and my two kids would have enough space to sleep. So this particular night, I was sitting up on the bed like I'm sitting up now, with my back against the headboard, and I was watching a TV show. To the left of me was my 1-year-old son in the middle, and then my daughter was on the outside of my son at the far left. And they were both fast asleep. They were asleep. And so I was watching TV when all of a sudden I felt the energy in the room change. It was like an atmospheric change. The only thing that I can kind of put it into words, it was like a shift in the energy. So it was an awareness that I had that something spiritual was happening. At the time, I wasn't a Christian. I wasn't following any of God's commandments like faithfully or anything like that. I didn't have a relationship with the Lord. I wasn't reading the Bible. To make a long story short, I didn't have a relationship with God. I didn't know him. And at the time, I don't remember if I had even a genuine desire in my heart to know who he was. Also keep in mind that my grandmother was and still is a pastor. My mother was a praying woman. She had a healthy prayer life, to my knowledge, at the time, especially. So I did have family and friends around me who were praying for me and praying for my salvation and stuff like that. And I knew that. My mom constantly reminded me that she wanted me to give my life to the Lord. And I just wasn't into that. My God at the time was my kids and my kids' father. That was what I worshiped, my life with them. And so, like I said, I was sitting in the room, wide awake, watching a television show, when all of a sudden I felt the atmosphere in the room change, and I had a keen awareness that something spiritual was going to happen. Next thing I know, the TV turned off. It just turned off, like someone hit the power button. And so I turned to my left to see if one of the kids rolled over on the remote control. And as I turned, I saw to my left that the remote control wasn't even over there. It wasn't even on the side of me. And so the next thing that I thought to do was to make sense of what was happening, because what was happening, it scared me, but I just was in so much disbelief that something weird was going on that my brain immediately went into trying to make sense of what was going on. So I said, well, maybe, I said this to myself, I said, oh, well, the power must have went out. So then the next thing I knew, I was panning back to the front of me to see if anything else had turned off. And my mother had a digital alarm clock on her dresser that was right next to the television set. And so I looked at the alarm clock and it was still on. It had really bright red numbers so that I could clearly see that the power to the alarm clock was still on. So when I saw that, I immediately knew that the power hadn't went out. So exhausting all the possibilities that my mind could make sense of why the TV turned out, I knew then it was made plain to me that something was happening. And the next feeling I felt was, the feeling was what was happening was leading up to something more strange, or something that I couldn't explain in the physical was going to happen. And soon as that happened, I felt a tugging behind me, like someone had lassoed me, like a rope was put around my waist, and I was snatched back. And the feeling was just like I said, it just felt like somebody snatched me out the room. I don't remember a traveling period. Like, I don't remember going through a tunnel. I don't remember seeing a light or lights. I don't remember seeing anything. The next thing I know is I was coming to a conscious awareness that I was in this space. This space that I was in was a very bright, pure white, super clean white space. And I didn't see any walls around me. I don't even remember seeing a floor underneath me or a ceiling above me. I was just in this pure white, super clean, perfect space. And as I'm in this space, I was coming to the realization that I had been in this space for a while. It was kind of like, it felt like I had been there in suspension for a while, but that I was just coming to the acknowledgement that I was in this space. And I say that because I was hearing myself having a conversation in another language. As my conscious awareness was realizing that I'm in this space, I'm also hearing myself speaking in another language. And I don't remember exactly what was being said while this language was being spoken, but I do remember that I understood the context. And the context of the conversation that I was having, and it wasn't with myself, it was with the presence there. It was with another presence. And you guys will understand and who that presence was and is in a moment. But I was having this conversation, and the context of the conversation was that I was being told instructions, directions. I was being reminded of things. I was pretty much just like giving a synopsis of what was going on with my life and what was supposed to be going on with my life, like where I was at in life, but what was supposed to be happening in my life. And so as I'm coming to the conscious awareness that I'm hearing myself speaking in this language, and keep in mind, this is telepathically. I knew that I wasn't moving my mouth, but I knew that my thoughts were being manifested. Like, my thoughts I could hear my own voice. So my thoughts were being spoken of out loud. I can hear my own thoughts. So, like I said, I'm coming to the realization that I'm hearing myself speaking this very, very pure, perfect, ancient language. But then I'm also able to compartmentalize my own conscious thoughts apart from this conversation that was going on. And so as I'm coming to, I start noticing that I'm in this space. Everything starts coming to focus, like I'm in this space. And immediately when I realized the space and where I was, I knew exactly where I was. The knowledge of where I was immediately made known to me. And I knew I was in the presence of God. I knew that I was in a heavenly place in the presence of God. And so as soon as I realized that, you guys, like, I just burst. It was just like, I couldn't contain myself. The excitement was above and beyond any type of excitement, any level of excitement that I've ever felt. The joy was just beyond joy. I could not, but it was pure disbelief. The disbelief, still, I can't even measure it. It was so unbelievable to me that I was in the presence of God in this place. And so I went into full celebration mode. Like, I just was screaming at the top of my lungs. I was jumping up and down. It was to the point where I started to see that there were other people and beings off into the distance, and some that were kind of close to me, but still a little distance away. And they were turning and they were laughing, and they weren't laughing at me, but they were laughing because they understood my excitement. They knew why I was acting the way I was acting. Like, the way I was acting was really extreme. It was the joy. You just can't contain it. It was beyond containment. I could, even if I wanted to contain it, there was no way. It burst out of me. And so they were kind of chuckling and laughing, and they did that for a little bit, and then they kind of went on about their business and back to what they were doing. And this went on for a little bit. And then finally, I started to understand the language. It was like it was being translated telepathically to me in English, where I could understand where this conversation was going. And then the next thing I know is I'm seeing this being in front of me, this very, very, very large being. He had to be at least 15 feet tall, because where I stood to him, I was in front of him. Where I stood to him, I only came up to his like mid thigh. So I was able to see like up to his chest area, and the top of my head reached his mid thigh. And this being was humongous. And I noticed the color of his skin. The color of his skin was not any type of skin tone that we have here on earth. So I knew then that he was not a human being like us, like me. His skin tone was like melted bronze and melted gold, poured in a mixing bowl, mixed together, and it had the most perfect tone to it, this perfect shine to it, and it was just beautiful. It was beautiful. He was a man. He had a male presence to him. He was a man, and I'm going to reveal to you guys who that being was in a moment. But at that time, I didn't know who he was. I just knew that it was a member of the angelic host. And he didn't have wings. I did not see wings. If he did, maybe they were hidden from me. I didn't see wings. It was just this huge man. And he had on a pure white, spotless gown of some sort, kind of like a toga, but it was shoulder fit, and he had on warrior gear, like protection. And I noticed that he had on this very, very large waist belt, which I later saw or found in the Bible as I started to study the Word of God, that it's called a girdle. And on the girdle, he had a very, very thick, large, long sword to his side. And he was wearing gladiator type, like leather sandals, and his feet were the same color as his forearm. I remember paying attention to his forearm and his feet. Those were the two body parts that I was really intrigued with, because his skin tone was just amazing to me. And I guess it's because I knew he wasn't human, and I was like, oh my God, I'm in front of an angel. Okay, so I'm standing in front of this angel, and he's speaking to me. But as he's speaking to me, I was so beyond myself of just knowing where I was. And keep in mind, you guys, like, I still had my conscious mind. I still was Destinee. I still was me. So I was acting like me. Like, I was like able to formulate an independent thought like I would here on earth. I was able to really just have my free will. My thoughts were just racing, and I was just worried, or not even worried, but I was more focused on what I was seeing, because I kept saying to myself, I got to remember, I want to see everything. Everything I look at, I want to have a photographic memory of it, because I knew I was going to go back. I knew I wasn't there to stay. I knew I was there for a visitation, and I wanted to remember everything that I saw up there. So I just started taking like photographic memory of everything that I could like feast my eyes on. But this angel was in front of me, and he was speaking to me. But as he was speaking to me, like I said, I was so distracted by trying to just look at everything, that he was like, wah, 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 like Charlie Brown's mom. It was like, I can hear him speaking to me. And again, his mouth wasn't moving. My mouth wasn't moving. This is all telepathically. And I'm hearing my own, like I said, my own independent thoughts. I'm hearing him speak to me in this ancient, angelic, heavenly language. And I'm understanding that I hear him speaking to me in this language, but I'm like I said, I was just so blown away where I was. And so I then looked at him again, and I kept saying, man, you're so big. And he would laugh, like in between him trying to talk to me and get my attention, like, pay attention, I'm talking to you, I'm trying to explain stuff to you. And I understood the context of what our conversation was. Because again, like I said, I was able to compartmentalize an independent thought, which is what I later found to be like my soul, like me and my flesh, like the soul of my flesh, and then the spirit form of me. So he was speaking to my spirit. That's why the language he was speaking, I would hear it in that heavenly language, and wouldn't understand it in my carnal mind. So my soul mind, I wasn't able to hear it or understand it, but I can hear it. But he was speaking to me, to the spirit me. And so he was trying to, get me to pay attention. Like, I'm telling you something really important. And I understood the context of the conversation. And again, he was telling me stuff like, you have so much to do and so little time. You have this to do and that to do. And he was saying all these things that I'm supposed to be doing. And I wasn't paying any attention. I was just like, oh my God, I cannot believe the Father brought me up in here. Like, it was crazy to me. My mind was completely blown. And then I was able to, it must have been something that he said or did that it snapped me into like, pay attention. And then that's when I started paying attention to what he was saying to me. And then I started catching what he was saying. And he was saying, you have so much to do. God has so much to do, so much for you to do. And you haven't even started yet. You haven't even started yet. And so I knew that this conversation was serious and I needed to pay attention. Okay. So then the next thing I noticed, I see, behind him, I don't know if it was maybe 100 feet, 200 feet behind him. I don't know. It was a distance away, like kind of like to my left, but his right behind him. And I see this form, and this form it looks like me. It looked just like me. It looked just like me. The hair, the clothes, the body build, the weight, the height, everything was me. It was like I was looking at myself in the mirror, but I didn't recognize the form. I didn't recognize it, but I knew it was me. And it was crazy because I kept saying, well, if that's me, who am I? And I know that sounds just very confusing, but you'll understand what I'm trying to explain to you guys in a moment. And so I keep getting distracted and I'm trying to see what this form was. And then the next thing I know is the angel kind of moves out the way because he notices that I see this form and I'm like fixated on it. And that I kept saying, I started like battling with myself, like my inner self, like my thoughts. I was saying like I said, my soul mind was saying, which is my carnal mind, I'm saying that can't be me. That can't be me. But then I would have another thought and I would say, but it looks just like me. That looks just like me. That has to be me. But how can that be me if I'm me? I'm right here. Why does that look like me? And I was doing this for a while. And then all of a sudden I heard a voice, and this voice sounded like if you took a river, all the rivers that exist and ever existed, ocean, all the oceans, all the seas, all the ponds, all the lakes, all the power of water, throw some thunder in there, throw some lightning in there. I'm telling you, this voice was so authoritative, so strong, so powerful. And I heard this voice. I never saw a face or a body or anything like that. I just heard this voice and it said, that is you. And again, I'm shocked. I'm like thrown back, like what? And I'm fixated on this form, and I'm knowing that this voice is not coming from the angel. This voice is God, you guys. I'm hearing God speak to me in this place. And I'm looking back, I'm fixated on this form. And again, I'm wrestling with this idea that this is me. Cause like I said, this form looked like me and it wasn't doing anything. It was just standing there, like at attention, like just standing there. And I kept saying, and again, like I said, you guys, this argument with my carnal mind and my spirit awareness, I'm going, no, this can't be me. But then I'm like, but it looks too much like me for it not to be me. And then again, I heard the voice. God spoke to me again, and it was a little bit more stern this time. And he said, that is you. And again, I'm wrestling with this idea that this is me, because I'm like, there's no way. And then the third time he said, that is you. And it was even more powerful when he said it. And when he said it the third time, you guys, it was like, the feeling was like if you took a rubber band and you stretched the rubber band out as far as you can before it breaks, and let it go. And how the power of the retention of you pulling that rubber band and how it pops together. I popped into this body, this form. That's the power of God's voice. When he said, that is you, he was making me understand. It was like he declared it, and I couldn't argue with him anymore. He said it the third time, I pop into this form. And when I'm in this form, the next thing I know is the angel's in front of this form. And I'm understanding that the angel is reading commandments to this form, and it's telling me, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, and there's this long list of all these commandments that God has commanded me to do. And I'm able to have an awareness that I'm inside this spirit. Like, I wasn't inside the spirit body. I became one with this spirit. I became this spirit form. My existence is now this body, which was what I learned later to be a glorified body. And I'm going to explain how that body looked, you guys, in a moment. But so I'm in this spirit form now, and I'm hearing the angel read off all of these commandments, and he was holding like a notepad, like a scroll, like a book, and he was reading off everything that God had written for me to do in my life. The will of God. He was reading off the will of God over my life. And every time he would say something, there was no argument, there was no debate, there was no, well, when, how, where, none of that was going on. The spirit body was obeying. I was saying yes, yes, yes. Like, it was written, it was done. And so once that happened, and I'm giving you guys the condensed version of this experience. So once that happened, now I'm outside of the body again. So now I'm back into my spirit form, and now I'm completely intrigued with this form, this spirit body. And the angel saw that I was like, I had a curiosity. I needed to know what was going on. And so the angel stepped back and moved out the way. And then all of a sudden I found myself, it was like God took me by the scruff of my neck and started giving me a tour around. And I was given a 360 tour of this spirit body. And as I'm being slowly, circulated around this spirit body, God is like magnifying everything that I'm fixing my eyes on. I started looking at the skin. That's what got me to be fixated on this spirit body in the first place. Not because it looked like me, because I saw it shining. It was like if you found a mother of pearl in the purest water, the purest ocean water, seawater that you could ever see. Like it was shining and reflective and beautiful. So I'm looking at this spirit body, and I'm noticing that the skin that is on this spirit form is made of all these different gemstones. I mean, I don't even know if gemstones that I saw exist on this earth or have ever existed on this earth, but if you could imagine any gemstone, every gemstone that exists, ever existed, and will ever exist, that God has ever made, will make, it looked like it was crushed. Diamonds, rubies, emeralds, lapis lazuli, pearls. It was so beautiful and so perfect, and it looked like it was crushed and just painted on. But then when I got closer, like I said, I would be fixated on this body of this form, and then God would even make it so that like it would be magnified, like my eyes would just zoom in. I was able to zoom in like to get a closer look, and I would see that they were individual diamonds, individual pearls, individual emeralds, individual rubies, just billions upon trillions upon zillions of them that made up the skin of this form. And like I said, the form didn't say anything. The only time I heard it speak is when I was able to hear it obeying the will of God, being called out by this angel. And so after that happened, I was just blown away again. I'm just like, oh my God, I go into full praise, glorifying God. Like, this is crazy. This is amazing. Like, I can't believe I'm here. I could not believe, I'm going to emphasize that, you guys. I probably said that probably 20 times the whole time I was there. I could not believe I was in this place. Now, at this time, I started getting intrusive thoughts. Like, I was hearing my thoughts tell me, like, every time I would like be like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm here. I'm glorifying God. I'm praising God that God allowed me to be in this space. Right. And then I would hear a thought say, but you're a sinner and God doesn't allow sinners in heaven. And then I would hear another thought, and then I would, each time I would hear these thoughts, I would get more diminished and more down and more shame and more embarrassed that I was there. Cause I was like, well, what if God is hearing these negative thoughts? Like, and what if he realizes that I'm not supposed to be here and kicks me out? And so I would start hearing, you're a sinner. You're dirty. You're nasty. God doesn't allow dirt in his house. Like, all these different intrusive negative thoughts. And then, once that happened, the next thing I know is, me and the angel are standing on a balcony. So we're standing on this balcony. This balcony was super duper 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 high in the sky. I'm going to say 1,000 feet, at least easy, you guys. And then I look at the banister, like the railing of the balcony. And you guys, I'm tripping out over the railing of the balcony. The balcony was made of pure marble and diamonds. You can see the diamonds, the crushed diamonds, like it was blended into the marble. You could see the banister just shining and reflecting, and it was crazy. I just want to go back a little bit because I did leave out a piece, and the Holy Spirit is like reminding me to say this part because it's important that I say this in the beginning. Now, when I first got there, like I mentioned in the beginning, that I was in this pure white space, there was a mist. I was standing in the midst of a mist. It was like this thick, clean, cool mist. It was like the perfect mist. And then, like I said, once I started coming to the realization and hearing this heavenly language, this conversation that my spirit self was having with this angel, that's when the mist started dissipating. And that's when I was first able to see where I was. I started seeing like I was in an actual place, like a city, a land. I was in a place. Okay, so back to the balcony and the banister. So then I'm looking at the banister. I'm seeing that this banister is like beautifully made. I mean, it was beautiful. It was these big spiral columns that went on like the length of the balcony. And then I looked to the left to see how long the balcony was. And I saw that the balcony went on for miles. And down in the distance, I saw that same mist down at the very, I knew it went on for miles, but I was only able to see to a certain distance because there was that mist that I saw when I first got there covering what was beyond that mist. So I wasn't allowed to see what was beyond that mist. And when I saw that mist, I knew that meant that I was not permitted to see. It was forbidden for me to see what was beyond that mist. And then I looked to the right, and then I saw the mist again. And I saw the edge of the balcony, but again, there was this mist, like maybe 6 to 8 feet of the balcony to the right of me. And then there was this mist, and then I wasn't able to see past that. And then the angel was on my right. And then I looked down and I saw the top of these palm trees, and these palm tree leaves were humongous. They were green, lush, beautiful palm tree leaves. And it was about 3 palm trees. I think I seen 3 palm trees for sure. And I only was able to see the tops of these palm trees in about maybe 1.5 feet of the trunk of the palm tree. And then there was that mist again. And I understood when I looked down because when I was looking down and I saw the tops of these palm trees, I kind of had the thought like, oh, I wonder what's down there. And again, as soon as I laid eyes on the mist, I knew that I wasn't permitted. It was forbidden for me to see what the mist was covering. I wasn't able to see that. And it wasn't like and when I saw this mist, I just knew, like I didn't ask. It was like, you're not permitted to see what this mist is covering. You're not permitted to see the ground. And so I was like, okay. And then the next thing I knew, again, I'm still like tripping out, you guys. I'm like, again, like I said in the beginning, I was so tripped out that I was actually here in this place. My main goal from that point, when I realized where I was to just soak everything up, soak as much as I can up, because I knew that eventually I was going to go back to my body on earth, and that I didn't want to forget anything. So then the next thing I remember is I looked up in the sky. And it was a sky, beautiful, clear, perfect weather blue sky. And I looked up in the sky and I saw these 2 portals. And you know the 007 portal, when the movie first comes on and it opens, that little black thing, that ring that opens up and closes. I saw 2 of those, and one was here and one was here. And they were made of solid gold, not a gold that we have on earth. It's like a supernatural gold. This gold was shining. It was like almost orange. That's how gold it was. And I understood that type of gold is like, it's like protection. It's like protection. Like nothing that is not allowed to get in could get in, and nothing that is not allowed to leave out can get out. And so I'm looking up at these portals and I'm tripping out over there. I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. Like, oh my God, these are portals. And so I'm seeing these portals open and close, and the one at the top it opened and I saw a vessel come in, and the vessel looked like the speed train in Japan. There's a bullet speed train in Japan. It looked like that, and it probably seats maybe 8 people, this little vessel that I saw come in. And I saw the vessel and it flew in. It didn't have wings or anything like that. It just was just flying, like, you know, in the air through this portal. And it came in, and then I saw the second portal that was underneath it open, and then I saw a vessel leaving out through the portal. And again, like I said, I'm glorifying God. I'm jumping up and down. I can't believe it. I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool. This is crazy. These are portals. These are actual vessel contraptions. And then when I said that, the thought in my head was, you know, the curiosity, like, what do they do? And one thing about when you're in the presence of God, there is nothing hidden from you. Like, you have all knowledge. You have access to all wisdom. Like, you have it. God allows you to have it. He shares his wisdom and knowledge with you. And so as I'm asking myself, I'm not even asking myself, I'm just having like the thought of curiosity, and the answer is being given to me right then and there. And so when I looked at the portals and I was intrigued with the vessels that were going in and out, the knowledge was given to me that these vessels bring in and take out people from Earth, to and from Earth. So there's something about our soul and our flesh body and our spirit. And so when angels, and I don't have a full understanding of this, so I'm trying to explain it to you guys the way that I remember it being given to me. And it's kind of like fragmented, so bear with me. But like when angels come and bring us to this place, and we're not meant to stay there, we can't just travel through just like that. Otherwise, especially if you're in the presence of God, because you can die. Your fleshly body on earth can die. So God has these vessels to protect the angel, your body on earth, your spirit body in heaven, and your soul form, right? Because the cross-contamination of defilement, something like that. I may not be putting it into words correctly, but it's something about the cross-contamination, because God is so holy. His angels are so holy. And if you're not meant to be in that place, to stay in that place, and then that is not your permanent home, there can be something with contamination where your body on earth can die, and then you'll have to be judged. And I'm assuming you go to, at that point, I wasn't saved. I didn't have a relationship with God, so I probably would have busted hell wide open. But anyways, so then I see that and I'm like tripped out. And then now I turn, because the angel starts speaking to me. So I turn and I'm facing the angel and we're talking. Now he starts speaking to me in that heavenly language, but I'm hearing it translated in English as to where I can understand what he's saying. And he's saying to me again, he's telling me that God has a calling on my life. He has a will that I have to fulfill. So God's will has to be fulfilled in my life, and I'm way off course. I'm not even on track. Like, I'm like way over here and I'm supposed to be here. And he's explaining this to me. And again, I'm so intrigued, you guys. Like, I'm totally distracted. I say again, oh my God, you're so big. The angel he was so cool, y'all. I knew him. That was the familiarity between us, was so just organic. I knew who he was. I was familiar in his presence. And I said, man, you're so big. And I was looking at his feet and I was panning up. And as I said, man, you're so big, he laughed and he said, you always say that. And when he said, you always say that, that blew my mind, because when he said that, I was given the knowledge, the automatic knowledge, that this angel has been with me since before I left my mother's womb. He has always been with me, and I knew him, and he had manifested himself to me before when I was a very small child. And so that information was given to me, and I just went into full blown praise and glorifying God again. I'm like, oh my God, I'm jumping up and down, screaming at the top of my lungs, just acting just a plumb fool up in there, you guys, because I could not believe what was going on. And so then I went to, again, soak up all the information I could, and I'm looking at him, and I'm looking at, again, his feet. I looked at the clothes he was wearing. I looked at the girdle he had around his waist. And then I got up to about right here. And then I saw the ends of his hair. I saw about that much of his hair, and it was like spun gold. The curls of his hair were so beautiful and perfect, and they were like spun gold. And it wasn't like blonde. It was literally like spun gold, you guys. And it was shining and reflecting, and it was crazy. And then there was glory cloud. I wasn't allowed to see his face. And I understood when I saw that mist again that I was not permitted, and it was forbidden for me to see his face. So I didn't even ask. The thought of me just, saying, man, let me see your face, man. I mean, it didn't even cross my mind. It was just like, I saw that mist, and it was like, boom, you're not allowed to see his face, and that's it. And so after that happened, I remember hearing his name. I heard his name, and I would just say this. It sounded like it was, from my understanding, it's like 26 letters in his name. That's what my finite mind was telling me, that there's 26 letters in his name. But when you hear his name, it's not letters, because I knew that I would not be able, I wasn't permitted to say his name on the earth, because I don't have the capacity to in this body. It's I can't even explain it. It's like you don't have the vocal cords or something. Like, you can't say it in any language on earth. And so, when I did later on, I would just say this as a side note, later on, it was revealed to me that it was the angel Gabriel, because after I left that place and I was trying to remember how to say his name after I came back, the only thing that I could say was Gibraltar. I knew that it sounded like Gibraltar, that word Gibraltar. And then I carried that for all these years. And then it was only about a year ago, I say, that the Lord revealed to me that it was the angel Gabriel that I was conversing with, and that I was up there with, talking to and hanging out with. And so after that happened, I looked to my right, and there was a young woman coming towards us, and she was holding a basket. And then the angel kind of moved out the way and stepped back. And then this woman came to me, and she had this big smile on her face, and she was looking like we haven't seen each other in a while. I didn't recognize her. I don't remember recognizing her, but she had this woven basket in her arm, and she opened the basket, and she kind of looked at me to look in the basket, like, kind of motioning me to look at the basket. And I'm trying to pay attention to everything around me. I'm like, man, I don't know what's going on with what you got going on in that basket, but whatever's in that basket it ain't comparing to anything that I'm looking at right now. Like, I was just blown away, like tripped out. And then she didn't move. And so I noticed that she didn't move, and I kind of got like a little irritated that she was like disrupting my soaking time. And so she just kept smiling at me, and she motioned to me to like look in the basket. And so I did. I looked in the woven basket, and there's this little baby in there. And it was just a little baby, and he was sleeping. He was asleep. And I was like, okay, I looked in the basket. Yeah, he's cute. And she closed the basket, and she walked off. And then as she's walking off, I'm turning, watching her walk away. And then I noticed there's a table behind me. And so now I'm turning around like, man, it's a table behind me. And it was this great, huge, big table lined with chairs on both sides, a banquet table lined with chairs on both sides. And there were a few people sitting at this table. And I was looking at the table. And again, the table ran the full length of this balcony. Like I said, this balcony went for miles and miles and miles. And so now I'm tripping out over this table. So now I want to see what's on the table, because I'm seeing that there's people. There's a doorway to the left of me behind this table. There's a great big doorway, and there's lines of people going in and out from this table through this doorway. And they were carrying stuff like plates and napkins and forks and spoons, and they were setting this table with food and plates and cups and all that stuff. So then as I'm seeing this happen, I'm like, oh, they're finna have a party. I'm like, they're about to have a party. And I'm like, man, I want to come to this party. Like, this party like it's about to be lit. Like, this is about to be a party. And so I go up to the table, and the angel kind of like stays to the right of me, kind of off to the side, like allowing me to soak up all this stuff. And so I'm looking on the table, and I'm noticing that there's plates. The plates are being set. But then I'm drawn to the middle of the table. In the middle of the table, there's bread baskets that was along, it ran along the middle of the entire length of this table. Like I said, again, it went on for miles. And so I go to look in the bread baskets, and I'm noticing that there's all these different type of bread in each basket, like different shapes and sizes and colors and just all these different breads. And then all of a sudden I hear the voice of God again, this very authoritative, strong, just powerful voice say, in every piece, he said something like, and I can't remember exactly the words, but it was something very close to this. He said, and there are no two breads alike. He said, every piece of bread is basically, is specially made for each person. So everybody got their own loaf of bread. And that blew my mind. I'm like, this has to be maybe at least 1 million baskets of bread with what, maybe 12 pieces of bread in it. And I'm like, man, who is back there cooking one piece of bread, you know, for all these people that are coming to this party? And so that blew my mind. And again, I glorify God. I started screaming again, excited, like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm here. This is so cool. Like, everybody get their own bread. And again, the angel's laughing, he's chuckling, and everybody's just like so happy that I'm this excited to be where I am. Like, they were laughing, like, with excitement. Like, they understood my excitement. And so, I had a moment where I said to myself, the thought, like I said, there were intrusive thoughts that would kind of try to sneak in, because like I said, I was so much in disbelief, and I knew that I didn't deserve to be there. So there were like these intrusive thoughts that would come and say, yeah, you're right. You don't deserve to be here. You're dirty. You're nasty. You're filthy. You're evil, and all this stuff. And so then, like I said, there was a thought that came to my mind, and I said, is this real? Is this real? Is this really happening? Now, keep in mind, you guys, I knew that it was a dream, or not a dream. I knew that this was not a dream. I knew I was physically, spiritually there. Like, however I got there, it really was happening. But I kept saying, is this real? Because it was just so mind-blowing to me. I was like, is this real? Is this really happening? And as I thought that, God, the voice of God said, look. And I turned, and off into the distance, God, like I said, he focused, like magnified my eyesight where I can see far off in the distance down this balcony. There was a white woman, a small stature white woman, and she had like a little blonde bob. And God said, look at her. She's wearing pajamas. She was laying in her bed just like you were when I sent the angel to come and get you, to bring you to this place. And then it was like, you're right. He confirmed to me that this was really happening, because I was in bed, you know, like not sleeping, but I was in a bed, sitting up in the bed at night, watching TV in my pajamas. And God made it a point for me to see this woman who was in her bed, sleep, I don't know, but she was in her bed, in her pajamas. And he said, you know, look, this is really happening. This is really happening. And when he did that, I again, like I said, I burst into excitement again. The joy was just uncontainable. Like, I couldn't even keep it in. And I was glorifying God and saying, thank you, man. Like, this is crazy. Like, I can't believe you brought me here. And then the next thing I know, I noticed that the angel's, like, his demeanor changed. His head was bowed, and I could feel his sadness. It was like waves of sadness started like penetrating my soul. And I didn't say what's wrong or anything like that. It was just like, now I'm in front of him, and I don't even remember turning around, but now I'm just standing right in front of him. And he says, you don't have a lot of time. And when he said time, it was like, it hit me like, what? I'm like, what do you mean? And the thought, again, here I go, I'm thinking, I'm like, what does he mean? What do you mean? Am I going to die? Like, I don't have a lot of time. Like, time for what? Like, I'm going to die soon. And so I go into this panic mode. And then as I'm like going into this panic mode, he says, come, he wants me to show you something. This is where it gets scary. So that doorway that I said that was behind this banquet table that the people were going in and out of, like fixing the table, we walked towards that doorway. Excuse me, I'm sorry. When we get to that doorway, I turn right, and to the right, they were going in and out of the doorway, but they were going to the left. When we go into this doorway, we went right. And when we turned right, there was this big, ancient, super thick door with like wooden engravings on it and stuff like that. And we're standing right in front of this door. Then all of a sudden, the door kind of dissipates. It just disappears. And now I'm looking into this deep, dark black space. This space was just space. I didn't see walls. I didn't see a ceiling. I didn't see a floor. It was just dark space. And as we're standing there, I'm kind of like, oh, okay, what are we looking at? Like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden, the darkness starts moving. The darkness starts slithering and folding in on itself and moving. And then I was like, whoa. And I'm like, it's alive. That's the thought that came into, I'm like, this darkness is alive. It was tangible. You can feel it. It didn't touch me. I didn't touch it. And I didn't go into that space. I didn't walk into that space. I'm standing in front of this space. But this blackness was so black, you guys. I have never in my life seen black, this black. And it was alive. And I remember saying, it's alive. And it has an intelligence. Like, it knows it's here and I'm here, because it's when it's moving. And the more that I was recognizing it, like, I was like, oh my God, it's alive. Like, what is it? I was like starting becoming more and more intrigued by this darkness, like trying to see what it was. It started like, paying attention to me, like slithering and folding in on itself, like letting me know that it sees me. And then I started feeling that it recognized me. And then it was letting me know that it was me and I was it. That was the thought. It was the exchange of the energy. I didn't hear a voice coming from this black thing. It was just, it started to become like, you know who I am. I know who you are. I am you. You are me. We are one. It was that type of deal. And so I'm like grossed out by this blackness. And then I start feeling waves of all this negativity. I started like feeling like I was being gut punched. Like, it was like this blackness was throwing darts at me. And I started feeling like the feeling, I can't even explain it. It was like the feeling of pornography, the feeling of sex, the feeling of shame, the feeling of guilt, the feeling of being a liar, the feeling of being a murderer. It was like all these negative, vile, evil feelings, like balls of energy being thrown at me and like being punched in the gut. And then to the left of me, the whole time the angel was just on my left side, and he had his head down. He was looking down like he was just so heartbroken. And I felt, at a moment, I felt his hurt. His heart was breaking that he had to show me this. And so I looked to the left into this space, and I saw three very, 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 very faint pins of light. And they looked just like the flame on a candle. It looked like somebody lit a candle, but it was so black in there that the little light, you could just see that it was three lights just suspended in the air, and they were flickering, and they were off in the far left part of this space, this dark space. And then I looked, my attention was diverted to an image, and I saw an image, and this image was my child's father, who I was in a relationship with at the time, and he was holding our son, and our daughter was sitting on his lap. And it was a very grainy 2D image, and it was kind of like a very bad copy of a 2D image. I can't even explain it. It was just suspended in this space, and they weren't moving or anything. It was just the image of them, and it was like really grainy and really it just looked really bad. And when I saw that, I got very, very angry. It was an uncontrollable anger. It was like I literally turned into evil. And at this very moment, you guys, I became the blackness. When I felt that anger, that black goo stuff turned its whole being towards me and shot right towards me. And I became that blackness, and I had no control of myself. I had no control of my thoughts. I had no control of nothing. I just became that blackness and everything that made up that blackness, all the evil, all the nastiness. And I turned to the angel and I said, you tell him. And I was telling the angel to tell this to God. When I became that dark blackness, I turned and I said, you tell him F-U-B word. And before I could say the actual, let me explain this part so you guys can understand what I'm trying to say. I turned to the angel to tell the angel to tell him, God. I said, you tell him. And I knew what I was going to say. But before the thought left, because I knew what I was going to say, but before the thought entered the atmosphere or whatever, I was popped back into my body. I was kicked out of the presence of this heavenly angel. But I knew what I was going to say. I said, you tell him, and I knew I was going to say F-U-B. But before I could basically put the thought out there to tell the angels, I was kicked out of the angel's presence. And so I felt myself like basically like being kicked out, like plopped. I bounced off the bed. I felt my spirit or my soul enter back into my body. I popped off the bed, and I was just sitting there in shock, y'all. I could not move. I could not talk. I could not do anything. I sat there until my mom and my stepfather walked in the house. My mom, and I don't even know how much time went by, y'all. I can't even tell y'all. Maybe an hour. It could have been 30 minutes. It could have been 3-4 hours. I don't know. But my mom and my stepdad come into the apartment, and my mom goes, "Hey, Muff." And that's what my nickname is. She's like, "Hey, Muff." And she walks past the room. And then I'm just sitting there looking spooked and creeped out, like not even moving. I just was sitting there. I was scared to move. And she came to the room and she said, "What's going on? You okay?" And I don't even remember the exact words I said, but I was stumbling over my words. I said, something happened and I don't know what happened. And my mom said, "Well, we'll talk about it in the morning." And that's how that happened. But to all the way up until maybe a couple days ago, you guys, I didn't know what the end of that visitation meant all the way up until a couple days ago. And I'm going to make a second part to follow up with this video to tell you guys more about the revelation God gave me on that, which you guys probably already at this point know that God had directed the angel to show me a glimpse of hell in the state I was in, and that's where I was going to go. If I were to die that night, I was that blackness. I was going to be owned by that blackness. I was going to become hell, and I was going to hell. And he just let me see the outer darkness. The darkness, you guys, put fear in me. I was so afraid of this black stuff that was alive. The fear was immeasurable. I have the angel Gabriel next to me, and I was in fear of this stuff because I could not understand what it was, and it was being contained in this space, and I knew that it couldn't get me, but God allowed that stuff to touch me just so I could have understanding of the state that my soul was in at that time. And I praise God for that. So I wanted to share that with you guys, and I'm going to be making, like I said, a second part as a follow-up to this video as God gives me the commandment to, and I'm going to wait on the Lord before I do that, because this is very important to God, that I obey his commandment and share my testimony with you guys about what God showed me. And I want to reiterate again, this was not a dream. This was not a vision. This was an actual translation. I was taken into the abode of the Most High. I was in his presence. I heard his voice. I felt the mist, the cool of the day that the Bible talks about, that Adam and Eve walked in, that mist, that coolness. I felt it. I was standing and talking to the angel Gabriel. It's amazing. And again, God had met me where I was. I was not a perfect person. I wasn't even searching for God, but God knows our hearts, and he knows what he formed us to be. He knows what he called us to be, and God does not fail. He has every intention for us to walk in our purpose and the calling that he has over our life. And he gives us all the tools. And some of us are so stiff-necked and hard-headed that he has to show us these things. And I'm one of those people. And there's nothing special about me. I want to say that, reiterate that. There ain't nothing special about me. Nothing. I still to this day am like so unworthy of what God showed me, because you would think after going to where God took me and seeing the things that God showed me that I would be, Paul or, Peter or, some mighty woman of God by now, like out here preaching the gospel, standing on street corners and, slinging holy water on people at this point. Like, no, No, I went back into the world 100 times after God blessed me with that visitation. Like I said, we're always in a refiner's fire. God's never done with us until he calls us home. We're incomplete. We are sinful beings, and we need God. We need him. We need him. We need him so bad. And that's why his son died for us, because there was no other way. There was no other way. Jesus is the way and the only way. He is the way and the only way. Jesus is the way and the only way. He is the word of God, and the word of God never fails. Okay. So God bless you guys. Please keep me in prayer. Please keep me in prayer, you guys. Because again, like I said, I am so imperfect. I am not perfect. I'm so stubborn and stiff-headed, stiff-necked and hard-headed. And I need the Lord so bad, because I don't want to fail him. I want to finish this race, and I want to make him proud, and I want to help the Lord bring as many souls through the door as possible. So that is it for today. I hope this testimony blesses each and every one of you who listen to it. And I hope you guys take it up in prayer. Ask the Lord to confirm what you just heard, because God is not a liar. He will never, ever contradict his word. He would not put anybody's soul at risk and send someone in his name under a lie. So you guys, yeah, that's like the main thing that I like to reiterate when I share this testimony. Like, you guys, please take it up with God in prayer, especially if you're actively searching for God's own heart. Like, seriously, that's what our testimonies, those of us who God reveals himself to, is for, because it's supposed to draw you closer to God. All right. Thank you guys. Love you guys. And I hope this blesses each and every one of you. Have a good day. Bye.